Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. Got a great show for you today, as you have seen on the, commercials for it. It's the estrogen dominance, or the estrogen assault that is happening on us through our environment from so many different direction. So we're going to discuss that today. I'm also going to do an update on the measles outbreak that was going on in Samoa and how that is tied to an immunization increase and an immunization push across this country for everybody to be immunized. So something that we all need to be educated on and have to probably make some serious decisions coming soon when it comes to immunizations and how we are going to improve our bodies to fight disease, because these people are serious about making money and serious about putting some needles in us, which is going to be another aspect of this estrogen assault that we're talking about today, which is a lot of these things are out of our control. So let's get right into the show. Thank you all for coming in. Let's ask God to give us His grace and His covering so that we may have an open mind, receive information, and hopefully use that to change our lives. I ask for His grace to remove my arrogance, my ego, and to make me a vessel for your benefit. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with this measles outbreak. So I wanted to show a couple things and discuss a couple things, of course. If you all have been paying attention to the news, you know about this measles outbreak in Samoa. It's been going on for a few weeks now, and they have made it mandatory for everybody on that island to get immunized. And so, of course, as I'm doing my research, you see other things like this article here that says Children's Hospital in Wisconsin temporarily bans kids under 12 for this reason, and they're talking about the flu. But when we look a little closer, of course, you all have heard me talk before that when you look at these studies, when you look at these articles, you have to be able to look at them and start to decipher some of this information. And so here it says the number of people killed in Samoa, I think this was just a few days ago, was 53, and there were almost 4,000 cases reported in total. Well, on Samoa, the island, they have 200,000 people on that island. And if you do the statistical analysis, 4,000 people in a island with 200,000 people is 0.002%. So that's absolutely statistically insignificant. So for them to try to push mass immunization, and see down here it says that Samoa's low vaccination rates are in part due to the deaths in 2018 of 2 children given a wrongly mixed vaccine. So now they're mixing up information and trying to make people think that there really is a need for these immunizations. These children that died were killed because some nurses did the wrong thing. They didn't even give them a vaccine. They gave them something that was totally inappropriate, and they made mistakes. And now, based on that, they're including this as a reason for vaccination rates. So I just wanted to make sure that you all are up on the latest information, what's going on, and I wanted to just suggest that everybody do their research. Here is a site that you all can go to. It's called ncsl.org, and it will tell you the states, as you see right there, where you can still get religious and personal belief exemptions. Now, this is 2019 information, so this is very current. And I also would like to suggest to everybody that's watching that you follow a young brother named Rizza Islam, R-I-Z-Z-A. His last name is Islam, I-S-L-A-M. He does a lot of information. He was just in New Jersey where they had a bill that they were trying to actually stop. Maxine Bland, thank you for coming in. Please put the site in the chat. Okay, yes, ma'am, I'll do that. So he was in New Jersey, and they actually just had I think a vote on whether or not they were going to allow religious and personal exemptions in that state. So this is going on around the country, but he is somebody that is very good to follow, because he's always keeping up and giving information, and actually giving people information on when things are happening in your state, so that you can be a part of not allowing this to happen. And I will give those sites before I get off, but I'm going to go ahead and finish doing doing this program, and then I'll give these sites, so I won't have to stop in the middle. Okay. So I will give you guys that site before the end of the show. So our subject for today is, of course, this hormone problem that is going on all around the country, all around the world, really. And some of us may have some information, but what I want to do is give you as much information as I can today. And we're going to start first with our anatomy, okay? So today we're going to be dealing with the endocrine system, which you see here. And I want to just go through a few points about the endocrine system, and then we'll get into talking about the rest of what we have for you. So up here in the brain, you have the hypothalamus, which is basically like the center that evaluates everything that's going on in the body, and dictates what the body is going to do in a normal aspect, and then also how it will make its adjustments when things are not necessarily going that good. Now, the hypothalamus sends information to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland is what sends out information to the rest of the endocrine system, so that they know what to do. So the first thing that we have to do when we discuss and we think about our endocrine system is that this is a system that isn't about asking. This is a system that dictates. It tells the body what to do. Okay, so hypothalamus, pituitary gland. Then we have the thyroid gland. And there are 4 little glands behind the thyroid gland called the parathyroid gland. We got the thymus, which is part of making our immune cells when we're very young. As we get older, this actually dissipates and kind of goes away, and other parts of the body handle that. Then you have our adrenal gland, which sits on top of the kidney. We have the pancreas, which sits behind the stomach. We have, in women, of course, the ovaries. And then in men, we have the testes. So those are our organs of the endocrine system. Okay? And it's a very intricate system. It's a very perfected system. There are no problems with this system unless we start doing things that are inappropriate to this system in order for it not to work correctly. And of course, that can be food, that can be exposure to chemicals, that can be not enough rest, being dehydrated, all the typical things that we talk about that can cause issues in the body can cause that system to go awry. But in general, that system works perfectly, and most of the time we don't have any idea that it is working perfectly, because we just don't really know when things are going good. The body just continues to do good. Now, one thing that I want to discuss before we get into the specifics is this notion of up and down regulation. When it comes to in our hormones, what is very important about the hormones is that there is a feedback mechanism in all of these systems, so that the body always knows moment to moment, second to second, what is going on with the body. All right? So let me give an example. Hypothalamus says that the body just doesn't seem to be in balance today. Sends a signal to the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland sends a signal to the thyroid gland, which its purpose is to keep all of the systems in conjunction, in working in a balance. That's what the thyroid gland does. Shirley X, thank you for coming in. So the thyroid gland is like an overseer of all of the other endocrine glands in the body. So if the pituitary gland sends a signal to the thyroid gland, it's either going to tell it, you're doing good, we need more, we need less. Whatever it tells it to do, it's going to do. So now what does the thyroid gland do? If the brain told it to decrease what it's making, what it is producing is circulating around in the body and going back to the brain and saying, okay, we're doing what you told us to do. If the brain tells us to make more thyroid hormone, then that's also going to do the same thing. It's circulating the blood, go to the brain. So that's a feedback mechanism that lets the body know, yes, I am following your direction. I'm doing what you told me to do. So the adrenals do that, the pancreas does that, the ovaries do that, and the testes do that. Okay? Now that we have that foundation, we go over here and we look at, these are receptors. Okay? So this would be like the example of the brain telling the body that something needs to happen, and this is the actual aspect of that happening. So here are your receptors, and this would be like the hormone. The green would be the hormone, the red are the receptors. And so if you are in a normal state, then you have one of those little green balls that could represent a hormone, it could represent nutrients in the body, it could represent a vitamin. Everything in the body responds based on a receptor. So here you have one of these green balls, they recept, and so whatever that green ball is telling the body to do when it connects to that receptor, that's what this organ over here, this tissue, is going to do, exactly what it was told to do. Okay? Now, you see here, this would be an example of down regulation. These receptors have been blocked, and there's only one available, right? But then down here you see that there are multiple receptors, more receptors than you see up here, and that would be considered upregulation. So downregulation can happen if the body just doesn't need any more hormone, or downregulation can happen sometimes when we're in bad health. Upregulation can happen for two reasons. The body has an increased need for whatever this process is, or when we are inundated or overburdened with a certain substance and it's basically dictating. Like I said before, this system doesn't have an option. It's not like in life, we say, well, I don't want to do that. Well, this endocrine system doesn't have that ability to say, I don't want to, or I'm too tired, or I can't do that. It has to do what it's told to do. When the brain sends the regulating hormone out, each one of these organs has to do what it's told. And that's what makes today's program so important, because we are being assaulted every day with all of these hormones and all of these aspects of society. And so that was the reason that I wanted to do this program, is to let you all have a little information so that you can be a little more able to combat what we're being exposed to every day. So I'm not going to get into all of these specifics. What I want to do, there you go, just another example of what I just finished going over of the endocrine system. But I want to get down into the specifics, and we start going through each one of these so that we can start making some decisions on how we improve ourselves. So there are the different aspects of how you can alter your hormones. And you see there it says sources of, EDC means, why would I forget the word that quick? Endocrine disruptor chemicals. So you can get it in your diet, in environmental contamination, plastics, and of course medications and other things that we're exposed to, like chemicals. I think this is very important for us to consider right here, this critical periods, and we'll come to some of those a little later. Intrauterine, meaning in the womb with the mother, perinatal, around birth, puberty, of course, when we're becoming, making the transition from a child to an adult, and then adult, right? Mechanism, it can be a hormone precursor, it could be metabolism of steroids that we are making in our own body and ones that people give to us. And then, of course, the effects. It can be reproductive and neural development. Keep that in your mind, because that means the brain, the maturing and the processes of the brain. And then sexually dimorphic behaviors, we'll get to that in a little bit. So I hope this is making sense. If it's not, you all let me know. So we're just going to get into some of these specifics, and then we'll go. So there are the first one, PCBs and dioxins, right? These are things that we get from plastics and other like manufacturing waste or manufacturing byproducts. It's in so many different things. It's in the water. It's in the earth. It's in, of course, in things that we have in our homes that we put our food in. And it's very important to know that dioxins can be released in extremes of temperatures. So if you have plastics or you have styrofoam, you put it in the microwave, you put it in the oven, you're going to increase PCB and dioxins. And it's going to go into your food and you're going to be putting it into your body. And we just said these are hormone disruptors. Now look at the bottom, it says it can interfere with your thyroid hormones. It can interfere with transport and metabolism of thyroid hormone. So if we go back over here and we said this is the main kind of balancer of the whole body, and you're eating something on a regular basis that's damaging that, then at some point you'll probably wind up with hyper or hypothyroidism. And if you ever have heard of any problems like that, you know that people have a lot of problems with thyroid issues because everything that the thyroid controls can go wrong when you have a thyroid problem. Flame retardants. So you see where you can get them: plastics, paint, furniture, electronics, and food. The thing about this is, if you see right here, it says they can alter androgen, which are the hormones that make a man, and estrogen, which are the hormones that are predominant in a woman. They can alter signaling and accumulate in organ tissues over time. So we're talking about stuff that you can get into your body, and it can deposit itself in the fat tissues and other tissues and be there and cause problems for long periods of time. So I'm going to go through this part kind of quick. I don't want to spend too much time because there are other things that we're going to talk about. There's dioxins again. Phytoestrogen. So those of you who eat soy, those of you who have decided that you're going to do the vegan lifestyle, unfortunately, there are a lot of things about the vegan lifestyle that are probably good, but there's some things in the vegan lifestyle that we may have to question. And soy is one of those things. From my understanding, most people that do the vegan lifestyle eat a lot of soy. Soy is a phytoestrogen. It will have an effect on your hormones in your body because it's a phytoestrogen, a plant estrogen, okay? So it has an effect on men differently than it's going to have effect on women. We're going to talk about it in a minute. Pesticides, probably one that is most popular when it comes to altering our hormones is the one called atrazine, where the doctor found that atrazine was causing feminization of the male frogs. And when you see down here, it says inverse relationship between ingestion of pesticides and thyroid hormone levels. So as those chemicals get up in the body, it starts to affect your thyroid. So your whole endocrine system is going to have some problems. Phthalates, that's in a lot of plastic containers and things that we use, personal care products that we use on our bodies, as you see right there. Anti-androgen, negative influence on semen quality. So they are agonists to receptors that govern fat cell growth. So they're associated with causing and promoting obesity. But the negative aspect on androgen and the semen quality is what we're concentrating and discussing today. BPA. This is a substance that they use for food packaging. If any of you are old enough to remember eating out of cans where you could literally taste the food and it tastes like the can, this is a substance that they put in the lining to keep that from happening. And it has a very serious issues with our hormones. You see there's an agonist of estrogen receptor. So if a man is eating this, you're going to have a feminization because of estrogen, and that's what estrogen does in the human body. We're going to get into that a little while. And if you see here, it says associated with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, sperm anomalies, reproductive organ dysfunction, and altered immunity. It's pretty some harrowing ideas, and I want you all to understand that the Environmental Protection Agency is supposed to be protecting us from this type of things, but these companies are getting away with doing these things. So those of you who go out in the sun and you believe these people that tell you that you need sunscreen, Now, if you have very light skin, you do need to do something to protect your skin. But sunscreens are very, very, very dangerous. Not only are they associated with causing cancer, but you see here that can affect your thyroid function and your estrogen activity, cause an increase in your estrogen activity. So in women, that's not good, nor is that good in men. And again, we're going to get to some examples in a minute. So those of you who, again, with your personal care products, underarm deodorant, some of these lotions, that's where you can get this triclosan from. You see there it's linked to allergies, asthma, CNS problems. May influence how thyroid hormones act in the body. It's not a good influence though. Perchlorate, that's in a lot of in a lot of the industries, these manufacturing industries. Again, you see it's affect iodine uptake into the thyroid. The thyroid gland makes its hormones based on the iodine that it uptakes. So if it's going to compromise iodine, then that means your thyroid gland is not going to be working correctly. Say women might be more sensitive than men. So not good. Parabens. Usually we find these in deodorants, in your lotions, and other things that you use on your skin. And you see there it's a mimic, it's an estrogen mimicker, so that is not good. We're going to get to specifics. Now, those of you who chew a lot of gum and eat a lot of chewy foods, if you don't read your ingredients, you may not know that you're getting this in your system, BHA and BHT. They are very long words. I'm not interested in you knowing those words, but you have to start reading your labels. And these things right here, as you see, it says foods and gum as preservatives, but it has been studied to be carcinogenic. And it also has some problems, causes some problems with our hormones. So let's get to one that's very, very serious in the black community, because black women have more of a problem with fibroids than any other race of women. It says here that the cause of uterine fibroids is still unknown. There is a link between fibroids and estrogen production. For instance, fibroids can grow large during pregnancy when estrogen levels are high, and can begin to shrink during menopause when estrogen levels are low. So yeah, they may not know exactly why it's happening, but we do know that in a woman's womb, which is that right there, if you're interested in having children, it's not a good thing to have your body being changed, because when a woman has a fibroid, that is proof that hormones, when they are not correct, cause problems. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? We're talking about what this hyperestrogenic reality that's going on in our society, that's what our discussion is today. So just for the sake of we knowing the anatomy, this right here would be the vagina. This is the uterus, fallopian tubes, and then the yellow looking things are the ovaries. Now, one thing I want to mention to you is when you look at this picture of the human body, the yellowish looking stuff is fatty tissue. So notice what you see. The ovary is yellow. The pancreas is behind the stomach, but it's yellowish. The adrenal glands are kind of yellowish. The thymus is kind of yellowish. The the thymus is yellowish, and the thyroid is yellowish. Why yellow? That's how we represent fat when we talk about the body. When we do pictures, the fatty parts of the body are usually depicted in yellow. Well, the fatty tissue is where we actually absorb and place most of our toxins. When the body is very toxic, most of the toxins are stored in our fatty areas. So when a person is, Brother Lawrence, thank you for coming in. So when a person is very overweight, it's sometimes dangerous to lose weight too fast. Why? Because you pull all those toxins out of that fatty tissue. But it's also very interesting that a lot of times when people are very toxic, their endocrine system is the one that's really being torn apart, because a lot of toxins can deposit in all of these organs that I showed you earlier. All of them are fatty. What else is real fatty? The brain. So we really want to work on these things, because it's not good to have toxins in the body, but of course, especially not in our fatty organs. Now, a little closer look at what a fibroid is. So as you see, you can have different types of fibroids, but they all can cause the same type of symptoms. As you see here, one is hanging from the inside. So again, let me kind of just orient ourselves. So this would be the vagina here, and that's the cervix. The cervix is the opening into uterus. This is the area, that cervix is the area that we check when we do a pap smear. Excuse me. And so here you have the fallopian tubes that go out to the ovary, okay? But for this, we want to talk about the uterus. You have three sections of the uterus. The outside is called the peri layer. This is called the myo layer, the muscle, and then you have the endo layer. All of these are metrium. The last part is metrium. So it's the perimetrium, the myometrium, and the endometrium. Most of us have heard that before, right? You hear that a woman has her pap smear, and you know they talk about the endometrium. The endometrium is the part that swells up, grows, and then that's the part that is released in a period. So when a woman has her menstrual cycle, she is releasing the endometrium because it gets bigger based on hormones. It gets thicker, should I say, on hormones. Now, when the hormones are not in balance, you get a slow growth of these fibroids. They can be, as you see here, in the muscular area. They can be inside the uterus, and sometimes they can be in the endometrium area. But a fibroid is an overabundance of muscle tissue that grows abnormally. As you see all of these, the way that they're in the system, you can see how that can cause bleeding. Like this one right here that's connected to the endometrium, that one would cause a lot of bleeding. The ones that are hanging like this can cause a lot of bleeding. The ones that are down inside the tissue can cause some bleeding, but usually not as much as these. But most of the time, these cause the most pain. And so sometimes you'll have women that have fibroids that are the size of tomatoes or oranges or eggs, or the largest one that I've seen personally, and the largest one I've heard of, is the size of like a large grapefruit. But imagine, see this organ right here, the uterus, is usually the size of that person's fist. So if a woman puts her hand up and looks at her fist, that usually is approximately the size of your uterus. So imagine if you have a uterus that's the size of your hand, but you have a fibroid in it that's the size of an orange or an egg or a grapefruit. It's going to cause a lot of pain, a lot of problems with your menstrual cycle, a lot of bleeding. And that's why it's such an issue. And we have to understand that a lot of the things that I just finished going through is what can cause this problem. So again, you know, I'm not going to leave you all with all bad news. We're going to talk about some good things. But when it comes to fibroids and this estrogen assault that's on us, this is another reason why we are having a lot of issues. Now, going to just the symptoms of hyperestrogenism on women versus men. You see in the women, weight gain, mainly in the hips, waist, and thighs, menstrual problems. We just talked about that, PMS. So I want the women that are watching this, and men, if you are going to give this information, you know, first of all, I hope everybody shares the show, tells a few people about it. But it's important to understand that we're sitting in and we're talking about PMS, menstrual problems, and we would have, and I would, in this part of the discussion, I would have to include menopause. These are not normal things. We can go to other parts of the world where people are living in a less toxic environment, and they've never heard of PMS. They've never heard of menstrual problems. They've never heard of menopause. So it is a aspect of having the hormones not correct and also being toxic. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. So back to women. You see the PMS, fibrocystic breast. So women that get these little knots in the breast, they are associated with the fibroids. A fibroid in the uterus and a fibrocystic change in the breast is the same problem in different places in the body. Fatigue, loss of sex drive, depression or anxiety. And then in men, you mean men can get enlarged breasts and sexual dysfunction, infertility? Yes. We're talking about an estrogen assault, right? It's against the man's main hormone, which is testosterone, And the group all together are the androgens, which make a man and give him his manly qualities. But too much estrogen in a woman causes these things as well. So let's go to something that many of us have seen, right? You see your auntie, your grandmother, or just usually an overweight black woman that you know, and they are pulling these hairs out of their face, right? They're waxing themselves, or they're shaving, or they're just pulling these hairs out. That's called hirsutism. That is a problem in addition to the ones we just looked at, right? All of these problems can happen with too much estrogen because what? The estrogen and progesterone are the female hormones. But what we're talking about here is when you get too much estrogen, then you start to have problems. And this is one of them. And I'm sure most of us as black people, but probably most people in general, have seen some woman that has hair on her face. And that usually is because they are overweight or they are being inundated with a lot of estrogen, like we just finished talking about. Sister Tanya, thank you for coming in. You said a very important fact about menopause. Yes, menopause is not a reality in those who keep themselves in a good weight or those who do not allow themselves to be inundated with these type of things. And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to solutions in a minute. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about, now see that right there is an example of gynecomastia, right? That is another aspect that's not listed on this, right? That just says enlarged breast. The medical name is gynecomastia. This is gynecomastia right there. This is the same person who has what looks like a male looking chest, and then he gets gynecomastia, which is female size breasts on a man, right? And just quick picture, I was at the pool with my children a few years ago, and this is a little boy that was in the pool with my son. And if you look at that, that's gynecomastia. But that's not that boy's fault. I'm not trying to blame him, but I took a picture of him. Of course, I tried to block out his face because I wasn't trying to embarrass him. I wasn't trying to throw shade on him. I wanted to use this as an example when I do things like this, when I talk about these type of things. That little boy has parents that don't know how to feed him correctly and or allow him to make his own choices, and that's how he wound up like that. That boy probably was about 10, 11, 12 years old with female looking breasts. That's gynecomastia. So that's the type of thing that can happen when hormones are raging and they're not normal. Okay, so this is why we're having this program today, because we have to be very astute in making sure that our children are not being exposed to things that are not their fault. It really lays on us. So what I would like for all of you to do in order to get your own list is to go and do a search for list of endocrine disruptors, okay? And there is a nice, I thought it was a pretty good document. That PDF right there, once you get it, go to that PDF and download that onto your computer or your phone. And it's just a nice, I'll kind of show it to you all. It's something that I think everybody should have in your repertoire of information, so that you can go down and look at what are the different types that I went through, and this one has a few more, and then of course it has on there where it can come from, and then how to avoid it. So it's very important. Maxine, thank you very much. Yes, please, everybody share the show. This is something that I think is very important for everybody to know, and everybody should be trying to contact any man and any woman because they need this information. We are being inundated with this stuff every day, and we don't know that some of the stuff that we are being affected by are preventable. All right. So again, this is a nice document. It's not, whoever put it together did an excellent job of not putting a whole bunch of medical terms in it. It's a good way of just learning about how we are exposed. Now, I'm not saying I agree with everything on here because I don't, but regardless, we have to start getting educated on this information and where these different chemicals are located, and the type of things that some of us have in our homes, some of us put on our body every day. It would be very important if you are causing yourself to have hormonal issues, and then when you go to the doctor, what are they going to do? Give you a pill. And the real problem is that you have to do a better job of making sure that you know where these things are and how to avoid them. So there's a, a pretty common list. This is something that you can find on, of course, the internet on a regular basis. But, you know, just real quick, I just want to just quickly kind of go through this and kind of make a serious point. Arsenic, I'm sure most of you wouldn't do any of that. That's the medical name or scientific name for rat poison. So I'm sure most of you wouldn't want to do rat poison, but rat poison interferes with our hormones. Atrazine, I talked about that earlier. That was the doctor that did the scientific research and found that that was turning male frogs more feminine. Bisphenol A, that is in your canned goods. Cadmium, that is a heavy metal. It's in a lot of water. So you can't eat too much fish. Dioxins in your plastics. Fire retardants, we talked about a little while ago. Fluoride. Now, I would challenge everybody to do your own research and find out that since we have been putting fluoride in the water system, have cavities gotten better? And all of us would have to say an astounding hell no, they haven't. Cavities have continued to get worse because fluoride was never an answer to that problem. There's a lot of information that you can go read. Glycol esters, that's on that glycol ethers, should I say, that's on that other list. Herbicides. So here it is that you, as a person, want to take care of yourself right, but you go to the store and you use statements like, I can't afford to eat organic. You can't not afford not to eat organic, because when you eat foods that are not organic and you have herbicides in it, you're having your endocrine system disrupted, right? PCBs, talked about that a little while ago. It's in a lot of plastics, it's in the environment. Lead, it's in these old paints, but most of the time these days you don't have paints with it. Mercury, that's in these immunizations a lot, and also you know, when you have thermometers and things like that. And it's interesting to note that, you know, if you are in some type of healthcare place and mercury spills, you literally have to get a special suit and a special team to come clean that up. But yet they're putting mercury in immunizations. Nickel, another heavy metal. Parabens, that's in your personal care product. Pesticides and herbicides. If you do your research on organic foods, you want to avoid those things. So please don't say that you can't afford organic foods. Rearrange your life and make the right type of foods your priority, because the right type of foods can actually keep you from having this problem. Perchlorate, we talked about that a little while. Phthalates, that's another thing. Triclosan, those are in a lot of our products. Insecticides, that's another thing that's in herbicides that kills your plants or the weeds when they're growing food. Pesticides, insecticides is pretty much the same thing. Kill the insects and other things that may eat your foods, right? DEHP, I don't want to get into that. That's kind of more of something that's in like more manufacturing, like other like higher chemical things or more manufacturing things. So a lot of people aren't exposed to that, but those who are have to be worried about the phytoestrogens. For those of you who do soy products. And what I want you all to do is start reading your ingredient list on packaged foods. There are very few packaged foods that don't have soy lecithin in them. So you have to be very careful. Phenols, PFC, all of these down here are just, you know, aspects of all the rest. Estradiol, estrone are just types of estrogen in our body. Fungicides would be something that you don't get in organic foods as well. But point being that we're about to start talking about the way to solve these problems, okay? Now, the last thing that I want to get into is, you know, there are a lot of people that would probably stay away from this aspect, but I have to include this because it's very important in this conversation. Because which of you would think that after I just went through all the different types of things that we can get endocrine disruptors through. Can you believe that this is an accident? Can you believe that this is happening just by happenstance when just about every different aspect of how we put things on or in our bodies are causing us to have some problems with our endocrine system? I don't think that that is by happenstance, and so we have to have this discussion about the LGBTQ community. So here's a study from way back in the 80s. It says, I'm just going to read this one part, just make a quick point, and then we're going to move on. The finding is consistent with previous research indicating that prenatal hormone influences in mammals, meaning humans, can affect later sexual orientation. In these earlier studies, the fetal hormone exposure led to lifelong changes in physiology and behavior. Now, this article goes into a lot of things, and then they start to talk about, things, and they really kind of, I think throughout the article, make things really confusing to an average person that would try to read it. But the point that I'm getting to is that this country, this government has been studying and researching and using prisons and other controlled environments to research and do experiments on homosexuality before most of us were born. So when we start having discussions about endocrine disruptors, it has to be a part of the conversation when it comes to homosexuality, transgenderism, because I, as a physician, I, as a scientist, am not trying to hurt anybody's feelings when I say that. I'm not trying to put anybody down. But we do, as a scientist and as a physician, have to look at the environment that we live in, right? We look at our environment, we say, wow, people in Samoa are getting infected with measles faster and greater than anywhere else in the world right now. So as a scientist, you can't look at that and just blow that off and say, oh, whatever. You have to start looking at why. What is the reason why that happened? And, again, a lot of the stuff that I've read over years is there's a lot of experimentation that goes on these islands. It's a controlled environment to a certain degree. They go and they spray stuff on these islands and get infections in people, and then they watch how it progresses so that they have information on what this will do. And this may sound crazy, may sound like a conspiracy, people, but no, if you go and you read certain information, these are things that have been happening. So let me see a couple comments. Shirley X says, is mercury put in the material that the dentists fill our teeth when we have cavities? Used to be, yeah. It used to be a substance called amalgam, which it was could include mercury and aluminum, and of course those metals were all put in there and to give a hard surface so that your tooth can still do the job that it does, that it's supposed to do. Now these days they say that mercury is not included in those anymore, but a lot of the products that were produced are still being used, and of course they're going to use that up before they start changing into other products. But the problem is, for me, is that a lot of dentists that I have had conversations with over the years, they refuse to even think that fluoride should be questioned or that mercury and things like that should be questioned. I had a conversation with a dentist not too long ago, and he actually said that he believes that, of course, these metals cause problems, but some of the way that people talk about it being so bad and all these things that it does, he doesn't necessarily believe that, but he does believe that mercury and aluminum and other things can leach from your teeth. And so there are things that, of course, people do to try to deal with that. We're going to get to that in just a minute. So my wife, Tawana Tober Muhammad, says, often the FDA or others say that as long as these are less than 2%, then they are safe. Can there be a cumulative effect if people are using seasoning or canned goods that have these different disruptors? Excellent question. So that's a great point, because if some of you eat packaged products and you don't pay attention to the ingredients, then you haven't seen the little list that says less than 2% of the following. Like they'll put the main ingredients in the list, and then they'll say less than 2% of whatever's left. And then sometimes they'll use this term GRAS, generally regarded as safe. Well, I know that those are both things that we have to be very careful of because, as I said just a minute ago, let's go back to this list real quick and look at, excuse me, some of these products. So here we are, bisphenol A. You get bisphenol A from a can product, and when you did not read your can well enough because you were marketed to by the front of the can, you didn't get anything organic, so you got herbicides, you got pesticides, insecticides, maybe fungicides in there, right? You didn't, and let's just say it was fish, right? And so you bought something that was from farmed fish, which don't swim around in the ocean or a lake, and so their toxicity level is high. They have a lot of mercury and sometimes a lot of lead in them. And so what my wife was pointing out is that sometimes these products will say less than 2% of. But here I just finished showing you about 5 or 6 things on this list that could be just in a can of tuna, or a can of salmon, or a can of sardines, because we don't have the ability to put this information together. And then you have parabens in your deodorant, and then you may have some of these other things in your spices. And so, yes, when we start looking at generally regarded as safe, or an ingredient list that says less than 2%, not when you start adding up all the things that you put together, not when you start adding up that I took a bath this morning that has some of these poisons in it with my soap. And then I brushed my teeth with fluoride. And then I put a deodorant, an antiperspirant under my arm. And then I put lotion on. And then I went and ate that food. No, we are overburdening our body. And then we don't understand why a little boy can wind up like this, right? Because his parents probably allow him to choose what cereal he's going to eat, and he's eating a cereal or cereals that say it's fortified, or what's the other word? Fortified and enriched with these chemicals or these vitamins that are coming from a chemical laboratory. And then he probably eats chips which have MSG, which destroys brain cells, but has all these other ingredients in it that can alter your hormones. And so, no, we are being inundated, and the body is being overburdened. And when a little boy looks like that, he is already in trouble. His future is going to have many disease processes in it unless somebody helps him, or unless he learns some information like I'm talking about today. And so that's why it's important for you all to understand this, because if you look like that, or if you are going to look like that, it's going to be a difficult future, because this is a sign of bad things coming in the future. So Maxine Bland says, what would you suggest as a less harmful anesthesia for children who need tooth extraction? Laughing gas versus Novocaine. And then you say, God, we need so many people to see this now and share this. Yes, man. What would I say about less harmful anesthesia? Well, let me first say, Maxine, is that if we take the information that I am trying to give to people and trying to help people understand, the whole reality of cavities would go down. So the first perspective is prevention. But specifically to your question, my suggestion would be that if a child is in trouble and they need a tooth extracted, you just have to get the tooth extracted, and then we'll have to detoxify them of the anesthesia. You know, my wife, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying this, but she had her mammogram not too long ago. And of course, a mammogram is suggested in all women over 40, but a mammogram is an x-ray. And so when she got her mammogram, I said, you know, we're going to have to do a program to help detoxify your body of the radiation that you got in your mammogram. And so it would be the same thing with a child. You know, we should all try to do the best we can to get the best option, the option that has the least toxicity. But if we have to make a choice to get a tooth extracted, or get a mammogram, or get in a colonoscopy, or have a surgical procedure, then the reality should be, okay, after I get finished with this, I'm going to have to go on a plan of eating correctly for a few days and then fast as an adult. And as a child, we're going to have to know, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, the type of foods that will help that child get the type of nutrition and pull these toxins out at the same time. So let me know if I answered your question. Maria Muhammad, thank you for coming in. So now, after all of that, I'm sure maybe some people may be saying, it's a horrible show because you told me all these things and, now I am worried. Well, the good thing is that you don't have to be worried. This is not a show to leave you in the lurch like that. Okay? So again, as I was just talking about, that little boy, if that little boy, let's say that my wife and I adopted that little boy, how would I help him change his lifestyle? The first thing that I would do is have a conversation with him about his embarrassment, because I saw that little boy while we were at the pool. And he was bold enough to take his shirt off, but he didn't leave it off for long. Once he jumped in the water, got out, he put a shirt right on where all the other little boys left their shirts off. So he's already at his young age embarrassed of what his body looks like. And so that would be the first place I would start, about having a conversation with him about how he doesn't like the way he looks. And then that would extend into a conversation about the food that's causing him to get like that, which would make him want to change. So that's how I would inspire that in a child. And so that's the same thing that I want to inspire in you all. We have to understand that everything that I talked about today, you have an opportunity to decrease or eliminate these things. The ones that we can't do anything about, we can't do anything about. If there's dioxin or PCBs, a lot of times that's in the environment. A lot of times that is in the soil. So if it gets into your body, then you have to have the mind of detoxification. So Maxine says, wow, thank you, sir. My child is getting 4 extractions due to bone structure in her gums and not enough space for her adult teeth to grow in. 4 extractions due to bone structure in her gums and not enough space for her adult teeth to grow in. Hey, well, I'm going to tell you, they told me the same thing when I was a child, and I never got it done. My father was a dentist, and what happened was I came down here to Texas to go to college, and I was on a plane one day and got the worst headache I had ever had in my life. And I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't look. Looking at things hurt. Chewing things hurt. I couldn't, listening to things hurt. Everything was bothering me so bad. I went to this dentist, and that's what he told me. He said, we need to take some of these teeth out so that your other ones can grow in correctly. I was like, man, I can't even think about doing what you're talking about until I talked to my dad. And my dad did not agree, because he never was the type of person to take teeth out. You kind of let the process go. But I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I would take my time and maybe get another person to take a look at her, because there may be something else that you can do. But I know that I was told the same thing, but I didn't have any extractions. I don't have any problem with my teeth these days, and I think that headache that I had that day was because I was wearing a retainer, so it was shifting my teeth, and that's what caused that pain that I had. So, I know some good dentists if you need somebody else to give you a second opinion. Waleed Muhammad, thank you for coming. It says it's an excellent show. Thank you for informing us. Yes, thank you for the compliment. This is what I try to do: give news that you can use. So share the show, and please continue to come back. April Muhammad says, thank you, sir. Excellent show. Thank you for tuning in. Denise, thank you for coming in. You said they told my daughter the same thing. Yeah. A lot of times, now let's just be honest. I'm not saying specifically this dentist or the one that saw your daughter, Denise, but dentists make money by doing procedures. They don't make money by cleaning your teeth. They don't make money by doing yearly exams. That's not how they make their money. They make their money by pulling teeth, putting in bone grafts, and doing all this other type of work and getting dentures and partials. That's how they make their money. No different than a surgeon. If you go to a surgeon's office, that surgeon can't make money by just talking to you and evaluating you. That's what the doctor did that sent you to the surgeon. The surgeon's going to make money by cutting you open. So they're going to be aggressive in that manner. They're going to push surgery. And so you have to understand that when you go to a dentist, they're not going to make money by telling you, okay, let's wait 6 months and see what happens. And then what are the type of things that can help our oral health? You know, so those are the type of things that we have to kind of get our minds wrapped around, is that the body is perfect when we treat it perfectly. And if we're not doing the type of things that help promote the body and taking care of itself, then we can wind up with all type of problems. Today we're specifically talking about endocrine disruptors and this hyperestrogen reality that we live with every day if you don't know what you're doing. But ultimately, we have options with everything. Strength, Love, and Peace say, I need dentist information, please. Yes, I'm going to give quite a bit of information, because at the beginning of the show, I got to give the website and all these type of things. So let's get to a few of these solutions while we're talking about these things, okay? So again, anybody that's listening and anybody that gets this information, please understand that you cannot afford not to eat organic. Eating organic removes, if you do your research, right? Everything organic doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but if you do your research and you get quality organic things, you are automatically decreasing or eliminating insecticides, fungicides, pesticides, and herbicides, which will decrease your ability to develop cancer, because these things can develop cancer later on, and also the endocrine disruptor like we're talking about, okay? Parabens, phthalates, things of this nature, which are in your deodorant and in your lotion. You have to start choosing a different reality. Why are you putting a lotion on your skin every day after you take your shower, which has alcohols in it, dries your skin, meaning that you'll never stop using it? And these people putting this chapstick on their lips every day, and it's got alcohol in the ingredients, you'll never stop using it. So we have to start making better decisions. You have to get away from toothpaste with fluoride in it. Okay? Start going to plant-based toothpastes. And for all of you that don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, because I talk about some of these things. I do a thought a week. And that's what I do, is just give you things to think about so that you can start changing your life. So when it comes to the soap that you use, when it comes to the lotion that you use, the toothpaste that you use, the deodorant that you use, the stuff that you cook with, you have to learn and go to the internet and look at these lists, write them down, take a picture, put it in your phone, and then start making sure that you're staying away from these things. I am not getting ready to say what I'm about to say to pat myself on the back. This is a 15 to 16 year journey with this information that I'm sharing with you all today. But I can honestly say that the majority of the things on this list right here, I am not exposed to every day, because I've done my research and I've gotten away from the products that have these things in them. Now, when it comes to PCBs and it comes to dioxins, it's very difficult to get away from that, because I do drink water out of plastic containers. At some point in the future, I do want to co-join myself with other business people and get our own water facility where we're going to put water in glass. Now, it is going to be more expensive, but it's going to be worth the money that you pay for it. Just like it's important for you to understand that it is worth the money that you spend for good food. We have to stop choosing cheap food and going to a grocery store and shopping based on the little, what's those things you get in the mail? The little coupons. You go to the store and you choose foods that are cheap based on a coupon so you can get as much as you can for a little bit of money. You're murdering yourself. And yes, I do mean murder, because the medical community, the food organizations and corporations in this country are murdering more people than the police, and murdering more people than black on black crime or any other on crime. That's the two biggest systems that people are dying and being murdered in, because we should be living a lot longer than we are. And we shouldn't be as sick as we are. But it's choices like these that I'm talking about today. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll get to the rest of the comments because we're almost at the end of our time, is that you have to incorporate. And I don't know if somebody that's listening is against drinking milk, but I did a program. You can see it on my Facebook page, or you can go to my YouTube channel, The Ultimate Wellness Group, and see my post on milk. But there are two foods that I think that you absolutely have to have in your life in order to combat what is happening to you until you get your life into a better situation like I'm talking about I got mine. Of course, it takes a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning, and then a lot of change. But that is navy beans and milk that comes from a cow that has not been homogenized and pasteurized. Those are the foods, the only two foods that I know of that give you nutrition and pull toxins out of the body at the same time. So those two foods will balance the hormones in your body, especially a breastfed child. A breastfed child that are on those two foods, that's like sending them to God status overnight. Okay, so let me see these last couple of comments. Maxine Bland replying to Strict Love. Take a photo. Okay. Already did. Okay. I have, April says, I have read that garlic from China is soaked in arsenic and sold in grocery stores. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information that is really, I think, marking China in a very negative way as far as food. But there's one thing that I want to say. Don't believe that China is doing anything different than America, and don't believe that the food in America is any better. Okay, so I'm not saying we can trust China, but you can't trust what's here either. Is oat milk good? Please tell me what you mean by that. I'm not sure. Are you talking about milk that comes from oats? Oak, I'm not sure. Let me know. Also, I've heard when heating up food in plastic releases toxins. Please explain. Yes, actually, anytime you have any plastic and styrofoam, which is a type of plastic, if you have any extremes in heat, you will release those dioxins and the carcinogenic substances in them. So if you have plastic and you put it in a freezer, like a lot of people do, they freeze their bottles of water. That's going to release more dioxins into your water. And, you know, the substances are in those same substances if you have that plastic in heat. So if you are storing your food, first thing is that we should never be cooking or storing any food in aluminum because that destroys our brain. But specifically on these dioxins and the PCBs, if you have hot food, you should store that in glass or some other type of metal that doesn't leach and cause you problems. So yes, extremes of heat and cold can cause more dioxins and PCBs to release into the water or the substance that you put in that plastic or styrofoam, and that will get into your body and it will cause a lot of problems. Okay, so let me see. Also, I've heard, yeah, so let me know if I answered that. I think I did. You mean oat. Yes, milk that comes from oats. Oats, yeah, well, oats are a grain that we should not be eating. It's very hard to digest. I know there's plenty of information out there that says oats are good, oatmeal is a good breakfast cereal. Well, there's a lot of bad information out there that's based in these corporations and these food, like people who grow oats or peanuts or walnuts or almonds. The people that grow these things a lot of times are the ones behind these studies that say these positive things. So yes, that's the show for today. So I thank you all for coming in. I see a few new faces today, so you all let me know if there are any other subjects that you would like me to do. If you can, please go through and see what I've already done, because what I'm trying to do is do new subjects, and then coming up in the new year, I'm going to start having some guests where we're going to talk about a lot of different subjects that continue to help you improve your health. So I thank you all for coming in. I pray that you all got some news that you can use for the rest of this week. I hope this helps you have some new information and start making some changes, as well as I pray that you're working hard on your health in a society like this. And I'm sure with the show that I did today, you can see that good health takes a lot of hard work and gathering new information. Oh yeah, and I am going to the links before I get off of here. I'm going to put all the links on here so you all come back and check out that information so you can get those links. Let me see what else I got. Excellent show. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the compliment. And yes, I'm not going to end the show until I put the well, actually I'm going to end the show, but then I'm going to put the links in the comments. All right. So thank you all. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you either next Tuesday or in 2 weeks from now, where we'll have another excellent topic for you to get some more information. So y'all have a wonderful week.